The year was 1921. The Gruber family, Andreas, Cecilia, their daughter Victoria, and her two young children, lived on an isolated farm in Bavaria. Christmas was approaching, but the festive season was overshadowed by unease. Strange events had begun to plague the family. Andreas discovered footprints in the snow leading to the house, but none leading away. Then there were the noises, faint footsteps in the attic, whispers when no one else was home. The family dog, usually fierce and protective, cowered in corners, growling at nothing. Despite their fear, the Grubers continued with their preparations. On Christmas Eve, neighbors saw smoke rising from the chimney, and all seemed well. But by morning, the farm had fallen silent. Days later, concerned neighbors discovered a horrific scene. Andreas, Cecilia, Victoria, and young Cecilia were found bludgeoned to death in the barn, stacked like cordwood. Inside the house, the maid, Maria, and infant Joseph were also dead. Their lives ended in their beds. Chillingly, evidence suggested the murderer stayed for days after the killings, tending to the animals, eating their food, and keeping the house warm. But the most chilling detail? The footprints in the snow led to the house, but none led away. The mystery remains unsolved, a shadow over the quiet Bavarian countryside. It was Christmas Eve, 2009. Emily, a 19-year-old college student, was babysitting for the Millers, a family in an affluent suburb. The kids, Luke and Abby, were fast asleep, dreaming of Santa, while Emily relaxed in the living room. The night seemed uneventful until she heard it. At first, it was just a faint scratching sound coming from the basement. Emily assumed it was the furnace, but as the minutes passed, the noise grew louder. A deliberate scraping, like nails on wood, followed by soft, irregular thuds. Gathering her courage, she grabbed a flashlight and crept down the stairs. In the corner, she spotted it, a makeshift bed made of blankets, scattered food wrappers, and an empty water bottle. Her heart sank as she realized someone had been living there. Suddenly, the basement door creaked shut. Panic-stricken, Emily bolted up the stairs, slamming the door and locking it behind her. Police arrived and searched the house. They found a man hiding behind a stack of boxes, clutching a knife. Chillingly, he had been living there for weeks, observing the family through vents and planning his attack. Small items had gone missing over time. A pair of earrings here, a mug there. But the Millers had dismissed it as forgetfulness. Emily's quick thinking likely saved her and the children from a grim fate. Hallstatt, Austria, 1999. 4 university students, avid hikers, decided to celebrate Christmas Eve with an overnight trip into the snowy woods. They pitched their tents, lit a fire, and shared ghost stories under the dense canopy of trees. But as the night deepened, their laughter turned to unease. Around midnight, they noticed hoof prints in the snow. Massive prints circled their campsite, too large to belong to any animal in the area. They joked about it being a prank, but unease settled in. By 3 a.m., they were jolted awake by guttural growling and snapping branches. A shadowy figure emerged from the trees. Its horns gleamed in the moonlight, and its eyes burned with an unnatural glow. The air seemed to freeze around them, and an overpowering sense of dread washed over the group. As the creature laughed, the sound vibrated through their bones. Terrified, they abandoned everything and ran, stumbling through the snow, until they reached the edge of the woods. Locals later told them they had encountered Krampus, the Christmas demon who punishes those who dishonor the holiday. When they returned to retrieve their gear, they found claw marks on the tents and trees, and their belongings torn to shreds. None of them ever ventured into those woods again. Helen Reynolds lived alone in a quaint rural home in upstate New York. Her plan for Christmas Eve was simple: a good book, a warm fire, and her cat for company. But at 8 p.m. her peaceful evening was shattered by the first call. At first, the caller said nothing, only breathing heavily. Annoyed, Helen hung up, but the phone rang again and again. Finally, the voice whispered, "I see you." Helen's blood ran cold as she looked at the curtained windows. The calls grew more menacing. "I'm inside the house," the voice eventually hissed. Helen grabbed a knife and fled to her neighbor's home. When police searched her house, they found muddy footprints leading from the back door. In a closet, they discovered a crumpled sleeping bag and a journal describing her daily activities. The stalker had been living there for days, watching her every move and documenting her habits. Helen moved out immediately, but the fear of being watched stayed with her for years. In 1978, a snowstorm swept through the small town of Frosthaven, Maine. That Christmas Eve, an escaped patient from the local psychiatric hospital roamed the area. The Carter family, unaware of the danger, went about their usual holiday traditions. The family's dog barked incessantly at the back door, but they assumed it was just the storm. The next morning they found bloodstains on the porch and their garage tools scattered across the yard. Panicked, they called the police, who eventually found the escapee hiding in the woods nearby, clutching a knife taken from the Carter's kitchen. The man had spent the night watching them through the windows, planning his next move. The Thompson family's Christmas Eve was peaceful. The kids were in bed, the fire crackled, and snow blanketed the streets outside. But just after midnight, a thud on the roof shattered the calm. Mark joked about Santa arriving early, but his smile faded when he found no explanation for the noise. Hours later, the children woke screaming, claiming they saw someone staring into their window. Mark checked the attic and found footprints leading to a small skylight. A chilling note was pinned to the frame. "Merry Christmas. See you next you. Welcome. You next year. Waikiri." Megan had recently moved into a new house and decided to spend her first Christmas Eve there alone. She decorated a tree with vintage ornaments she had inherited from her grandmother, thrilled to start her own holiday traditions. But the tree seemed to have a life of its own. Around midnight, Megan woke to faint rustling sounds. She assumed it was the wind, but as she crept downstairs, the tree lights flickered on, though she hadn't plugged them in. Then she saw it, a pale hand reaching out from the branches. Terrified, she backed away, knocking over a chair. By morning, the tree was gone. In its place was a shattered ornament with the words, "You shouldn't have taken me." In the town of Hollow Creek, Christmas carolers avoided the old Morgan house, a place whispered to be cursed. One Christmas Eve, a group of daring teenagers decided to break tradition and include it in their route. When they knocked, the door creaked open, revealing a dusty gramophone playing a haunting version of Silent Night. As they sang, the door slammed shut. One of the teens disappeared. Upstairs, they found a mirror with the words, "Sing it again," written in fog. They fled, but their friend was never found. Until 1 year later, the state of the body was well. I can't explain it here on YouTube, but let's just say to use your imagination and let me know in the comments what you thought happened to the body. Sam was driving home late on Christmas Eve when he spotted a hitchhiker shivering in the snow. Feeling pity, he offered her a ride. She was silent, clutching a small gift in her hands. After a while, she whispered, "Thank you," and vanished. The seat was empty and a small gift was left behind. Inside was a photograph of the girl and a note, "Thank you for bringing me home." Sam later learned she had died in a car accident on that very road years ago. A little kindness goes a long way, but on the road, especially at night, can lead to hallucinations, which you must always make sure you're wide awake with enough sleep so that instances like these don't happen again. Herr Klaus, a reclusive toymaker, was known for his lifelike creations. After his daughter's death one Christmas Eve, he became withdrawn. Rumors spread that he had turned to dark arts. One Christmas Eve, local children broke into his abandoned workshop. They found dolls that moved on their own. The door slammed shut, and the children's screams were never heard again. By morning, new dolls appeared in the shop window, eerily resembling the missing kids. Word got around, and the police did their job in capturing this sicko. 1 year later in his cell, on Christmas Eve, a guard came to check up on him, only to see a life-size doll looking eerily similar to him. Could the madness of imprisonment have gotten to him? One can only imagine what went through this person's head. At St. Mary's Church, the Christmas Eve Bellringer had a tradition, climbing the tower to ring in midnight. This year, a young man named Daniel volunteered. Villagers warned him not to look at the lake's reflection while ringing the bell, but curiosity got the better of him. In the reflection, he saw a shadowy figure pulling the ropes instead. The bell tolled 13 times, and Daniel vanished. His name appeared etched into the bell the next morning. See, viewers, this is what we call curiosity kills the cat. But in this instance, it was Daniel who was the victim. Let that be a lesson in minding your business, and most importantly, get the job or mission you set out to do done and arrive home for tea. Christmas is a time for love and family, but as these stories show, it's also a time when the veil between light and darkness can grow thin. As you celebrate, keep your doors locked, your windows closed, and your loved ones close. You never know what might be lurking in the shadows. With that being said, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Up next is Christmas Day themed true horror stories, so you don't want to miss out on the next upload. Speaking of which, why not subscribe and hit the bell so you know that my next video will come out on Christmas, and other future videos down the line you will know about. I expect big things to come out next year for sure, but that's for another time. Get those last minute presents, 'cause we're always watching.